Hello and welcome to the Warehouse of the Future, a new series of exclusive podcasts brought to you by Robotics, a leading name in end-to-end AIDC technology solutions. On today's episode, we'll be discussing the importance of deploying and maintaining a robust Wi-Fi infrastructure and why evaluating your premises for its wireless integrity is vital to creating a network to optimize a variety of innovative warehouse solutions. I'm Dave Harris, and joining me to discuss this fascinating topic is Craig Jones, Channel Manager for Machine Vision and Imaging at Zebra Technologies. Carl Schooley is an Applications Engineer for Data Logic. Nick Kimber is the Global Key Account Manager for Ruckus, and Jamie Mottershead is the Technical Director here at Renovitech. Jamie, Craig, Carl and Nick, thank you for being here today at Renovitech's Innovation Centre to talk all things technology for the warehouse. So, Jamie, I'd like to start with you first, if I may. So much is changing in the world of warehousing and logistics. What are the key technologies that the warehouse of the future do you think might adopt?
I think first and foremost, I think we're in a really exciting time in warehousing and logistics at the moment. I think what we're seeing is technology is really is changing almost on a daily basis. So I think the challenge is to make sure that you get the right solution for the customer, the right solution for the operation. I know we're going to talk a little bit about machine vision today on this podcast, but I think that's a really important technology that's come to the marketplace, and I think we're only really scratching the surface of its capabilities, and I think the limitations there are only around our vision of what it can do in the future. They really are open to multiple use cases, and I think that really excites me in terms of the geek inside me. There are other areas of where the technology in the future can take us. So a lot of the fixed scanning, a lot of particular areas such as returns, picking capabilities. We've seen robotics in the industry come and take off, but I think what we're seeing there isn't really a one size fits all approach to the warehouse anymore. So it's about finding the right solution that solves a particular problem. And I think one of the areas that sometimes is put to the back of our thoughts then becomes the infrastructure and the wireless capabilities behind that, because the technology that we have becomes nothing if the infrastructure can't support that.
Craig, if I could turn to you now. Jamie mentioned their machine vision. What is that?
So machine vision, to put it simply, is having a camera system, taking an image of parts of the warehouse or the factory that you want to kind of look at, and then doing the data processing of that image. Okay, so you'll have the image, and then you'll output the data that then links to the rest of your processes.
And why would you deploy machine vision? What are the advantages?
To be honest, numerous. When you deploy machine vision, first of all, it gives you 100% quality inspection if you choose to do that. Okay, the human eye and using people to kind of inspect processes is fantastic, but also it's kind of flawed. If you have a machine vision camera, it doesn't take time off. Generally, it doesn't have kind of sick leave, etc. And it shouldn't miss anything if deployed correctly. So what it does, it can give you 100% quality inspection. It can do tasks that you can't do with the human eye a heck of a lot quicker. So it can speed up your processes.
Okay, so I understand the benefits. Are there any particular benefits that kind of above and beyond the others, which are really essential in the modern warehouse?
Yeah, so apart from your kind of quality inspection and you being able to look at every part, every product, every barcode, every 2D code, with today's modern warehouse, you can actually network and link in. So actually, when it comes to the maintenance and the overall efficiency and equipment efficiency of the warehouse, you can actually monitor where you've got pinch points, failure points, and you can actually preempt failures before it actually happens. So actually, there's multiple uses of machine vision, and it's not just kind of a straight benefit. It can actually filter on further down the line as well.
And I think probably just to add to that, when we're talking some of the benefits that we've seen is the ability to add compliance into processes. So adding, we'll be able to capture things like batch numbers or serial numbers from a product from at the same time as capturing your more traditional sort of barcode. So adding multiple data capture points is really important and becomes a real key benefactor for our customers.
And when you're talking to customers, I mean, is it easy to identify good opportunities, to use machine vision?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this becomes an area of education as well, because what we have to do is go in and understand the process. It's a slightly different approach to a more traditional looking at hardware perspective. We've got software that sits in the background that we need to make sure that we analyze the process as much as we possibly can, so that when we implement a solution, we really are squeezing the most out of that, the software and the investment into that product. I think a lot of our customers are looking at sort of key areas around efficiency, around, from a productivity perspective. They'll look at things from an accuracy perspective. They want flexibility, but just as important in that is they want scalability as well. So trying to get as many of those, or hit as many of those points as we possibly can with the solutions that we bring in, becomes really important.
Craig, would you agree with that? I mean, is it obvious when those opportunities are there for your clients?
It is obvious. Some clients take it up a lot quicker than others. I think what we've got to look at as well is, yes, it's fantastic that we can improve processes, we can improve efficiencies, but actually in the long term as well, when you're looking at kind of 3PLs or customers that are looking to engage with new contracts or end users, then actually it gives them an advantage over the competition. Because if you're using machine vision and imaging and competitors aren't, then you're a heck of a lot further down the road.
So, Carl, if I could turn to you now, I wonder if you could give me some practical examples of where machine vision makes a real difference.
Yeah, so I'm an application engineer at DataLogic. I get a lot of customer requests day to day. A common one that I'm seeing for machine vision is where a barcode is unreadable. It'll try and use optical character recognition to get the address for that parcel instead of using the code.
Okay, so it's a kind of backup if the code is unreadable.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I want to also ask you about pop-up warehouses. What's a pop-up warehouse, and how does that change the technology requirement?
So COVID and Brexit has led to the biggest changes in warehousing that I can remember. We've seen huge increases in pop-up warehouses to combat staff shortages mainly. These smaller areas of a larger warehouse that already exists can be rented on demand, and order fulfillment is normally handled by temporary staff that's employed by the renter. But this means stock is constantly changing, from Christmas trees to pool toys to Halloween decorations, and a new warehouse layout has to be learned every month by the users, by the pickers, packers, etc. A lot of time is wasted wandering around the aisles, asking other staff for help, directions, etc. So something called real-time location positioning is something that I think could really help for the future of these pop-up warehouses. Real-time location positioning has been around for a while, but advances in Bluetooth has meant that accuracy is vastly improved down to 1 meter ranges. So this allows things like pick lists that can be generated on a user's PDA with a live route map. It's like having Google Maps for your warehouse, taking you right to the shelf containing the goods that you're looking for. Forklift trucks can be tracked based on the mobile device that's in their cabs, where they can be alerted to other staff that are in those aisles performing other roles, or you can have a truck with a proximity warning when it gets close to those particular areas. A lot of people are then using that data to improve their layouts and workflows for the warehouses themselves. So they're creating one-way systems or no-go areas that's set via geofencing from the devices itself. This is really useful where robots are working, for example, or high-value goods are stored and you need to limit access to those areas.
And just to add to what Carl was saying there, from a health and safety perspective, knowing when larger machinery is in an aisle such as a VNA, where you want to restrict access, to a particular aisle from a health and safety perspective is also important. The robotics side of things, again, are designed to move and navigate around people, but it's also important that we understand where they are within aisle as well.
So another thing to kind of comment on that, Jamie, as well, is that Zebra have actually got Fetch Robotics. So our AMRs, which we use for warehousing, They've got actually 2 safety systems on board, so we've got the highest safety rating of any robot that I'm aware of. So actually the safety side of the robotics is really high when it comes to our equipment. On top of that, we're actually kind of leveraging the robotic side with the likes of our scan tunnels and also packing benches on the machine vision side.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned packing benches there, because obviously a packing bench seems to me as a very fundamental part of a warehouse, because obviously everything has to be packed sooner or later to send it off. So, Carl, can you provide an example of how technology is getting integrated into packing benches and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So our packing bench solution is a great example of existing technology being adapted to solve specific issues. So again, Brexit led to huge staff shortages in the warehouse. COVID created an e-commerce boom almost overnight, while component shortages meant traditional packing solutions using hand scanners, mobile computers, etc. They weren't available. You couldn't get the components anymore for it. So this created a perfect storm and a flurry of requests from e-commerce companies, fulfillment centres, warehouses that needed to really quickly improve throughput in packing processes without hiring extra staff or redesigning existing processes for new hardware. So we used our Matrix fixed position scanner, typically seen on conveyor belts, to create a two-handed packing system, which has since proven to double throughput compared to traditional hand scanners. Install is as easy as unplugging the old hand scanner from the existing WMS system and plugging in the new scanner.
So from what you're saying, the ROI, the return on investment, is pretty clear, if you're talking about doubling productivity and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. So we've also started integrating these pack bench systems with existing CCTV systems in the warehouse. So this allows immediate retrieval of both images from the scanner of the product itself being scanned and a video from the CCTV already existing in the building of that particular bench processing that individual order. And that's improved loss prevention dramatically, improved ROI again. So we're seeing customer quoting ROI down to 3-6 months.
Nick Kimber, sorry, I've been leaving you out of the conversation a bit. I do apologise. I want to ask you about Wi-Fi, because obviously Wi-Fi, it's in all our lives, isn't it, domestically and industrially, and how important is Wi-Fi to underpinning these new technologies, and how easy is it to adopt that in the warehouse and make it very reliable?
We've talked a lot today about all the different types of technologies that the warehouse vertical is deploying. And as you're quite rightly, to underpin it, you need an infrastructure which has to be solid, reliable, flexible, and available. And you're right in terms of what you said about it's in the domestic space as well as the industrial space. Everybody expects it to be there. However, because in the last 4 or 5 years and just slightly before COVID kicked off, the amount of technologies are being deployed, more and more customers are realizing they need to spend time to make sure the infrastructure is right first time. You've got to build an infrastructure right to be able to support all the technology that's going on.
So tell me about service level agreements, Nick, and the importance of them within the supply chain.
Okay, so an SLA, a service level agreement, is always something that warehouse customers abide by in some way, shape or form. If they're a third-party logistics company and they are working on behalf of a retail brand, let's say, they have to be able to deliver a parcel within a specific time. So they sign up to SLAs with their customer to deliver, which means that the technical infrastructure on the back end has to meet those SLAs to start with. So you can't just put wireless in that just sits there and does something. You've got to make sure that if it fails at certain points, you've got a backup for it to still meet those SLAs. And more importantly now is that you've got to be checking those SLAs constantly to ensure that the devices connected to the network are meeting and exceeding where they need to be under contract.
And tell me about a service wrap. What's a service wrap and why should organisations invest in that?
So a service wrap is using either professional services or a partner to be able to make sure that everything's done right first time. You can't just put a wireless network in and then just connect devices. It doesn't work like that anymore. There are so many technical refinements you have to do to ensure that a robotics system works, Envision works, all the different technologies there, a barcode scanner, an RFID machine, everything around that has to be checked and double checked before it's gone live within a warehouse. Because if you don't give that service wrap around it, you are going to come up with problems, and SLAs will be missed, and there'll be penalties against those customers.
And I think just to add to that, different technology, different equipment has different requirements. Some will need to have 100% redundancy, will have to have 100% connectivity to the network to allow it to work. We're talking about products both from the packing bench and from machine vision, where it needs to have that real-time response to be able to get the speed that we're talking about. We're talking about, again, both in the examples from machine vision and from the packing bench, where in instances we're taking multiple, images of products so we can make sure that the accuracy level is where it needs to be. If that response is then delayed by half a second, that could be the difference between going down the wrong chute on a conveyor or not. So I think it's really important that the wraparound layer that we're talking about here is met, and the right people involved that have the knowledge and understanding and the capability to ensure that the technology that you're investing in works to its optimum.
And I can give an example of that. We were working in a manufacturing environment, very similar to a warehouse type of setup. And we were cutting across from one vendor to another. And the customer thought they could just connect all the devices they had on the existing network to the new network. But it doesn't work like that. Every type of technology has to be set up, configured, and tested to make sure it works. Because you're going from one technology to another in terms of wireless and Wi-Fi 5 to Wi-Fi 6. And they hadn't realised that. And their head cams didn't work. Their hand glove testers didn't work. And it wasn't until they spoke to the vendors and said, you need to configure it this way for it to work, that was fine. I think one of the other things that was absolutely important as well is doing a survey. Because if you don't do a survey of a warehouse, you are going to get black spots. You are also then not going to find out from a customer what's important for me for the next 5 years, because I need to be able to do this, this, and this. And if you don't cover that within a survey and the professional services you wrap around it, there's going to be problems.
So, Jamie, finally, obviously this is much more complicated, than setting up a Wi-Fi in your house and just connecting your phone to it and that sort of thing. So, what's the Robotics approach to this? Would you say?
Okay, so the Robotics approach, is really simple. We need to understand the operation. We need to understand the business that we're going to be working with. We need to look at the pain points that particular customer and that operation then may have. We may be able to offer solutions that say, okay, we've worked like this in the past. Would that be something that would be applicable? But the consultation approach is really important. Just going back to what Carl mentioned around pop-up warehouses we're seeing more and more of in the industry at the moment, just as Carl mentioned. I think the consumer buying approach at the moment changes sometimes on a day-to-day basis. We saw obviously a huge change in COVID. What that means to the logistics sector and the industry is we need to adapt to that, and we need to be ready to make those changes. The Wi-Fi infrastructure of that is really important, because you have a space within the warehouse that you now need to create a new pop-up warehouse. It needs to be ready to be able to manage and maintain and support that new operation. So, from a Robotics perspective, making sure that we go through that due diligence of understanding the operation and pain points, so then we can make the suggestions on what the best practice may be and the best solution that we can implement.
I think one of the other areas that is becoming more and more prevalent in the warehouse of the future is IoT. Carl mentioned about using location and using Bluetooth down to about 1 meter. And I think that most people, when they talk about Wi-Fi, just think of Wi-Fi, 2.4 and 5 gig wireless, that's it. It's actually now about Bluetooth, Zigbee, so different radio frequency technology, allowing us to be able to do different things. If I look at things like water leak detection or mold and damp sensors or power, anything that smart factory, smart warehouse of the future, using different things, connecting into this infrastructure. So it's not just wireless, it's about adding all these other things in as well.
Carl, you were mentioned there as an applications engineer. You're obviously in those warehouses a lot. And what's your sort of view of the Wi-Fi situation, and how do you deal with that?
Network surveys are vital. There are every single warehouse around the country, they will have black spots. They'll have areas where the app crashes. They don't know whether it's the device, the app, the network, etc. Whenever we're doing on-site demos and tests with our mobile computers, we've got some great tools to help that process and tune the devices for the network, but it's really no substitute for a proper network survey. That should always be done when any new hardware goes in.
And Craig, final word to you on Wi-Fi. What's your sort of view of it?
So I think, although I'm not an expert on Wi-Fi systems at all, especially in Zebra, all our devices are getting a lot more intelligent. Okay, so Internet of Things was mentioned, IoT. The fact we can get a lot more data and information back from our devices, our edge devices, and then we can send them out on the network is absolutely vital to the customer. And that just links into their whole maintenance schedules and further on down the line.
Jamie, last word to you. If a customer listening to this or watching this wants to know a bit more, what should they do?
Well, I think get in touch with ourselves at Robotics. We have this fantastic facility that you can see around us today, our Robotics Innovation Centre that we're sat in here. The great thing about the facility we have here is you really get the opportunity to get hands-on not only with the hardware but with the software as well, and seeing these solutions work together. We have our infrastructure section as well, so understanding how some of the challenges that Nick has spoken around, making sure that the right device is set up and configured in the right way to work, and we've already